Today's guest is Andy Borses. He spent 20 years leading high-stakes projects for brands like Disney, Fox, and ESPN, but in 2020, he walked away from all of it to build something different. Since then, he's raised over $6 million, co-owns 500-plus units, and wrote the bestseller, The Common Thread Method, an international best-selling book on how to raise capital through connection, not pressure. He's also the founder of Rise by 25, a movement that gives young adults the wealth-building tools that schools never taught. Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Leo, thank you for having me, and thanks for that great introduction. That's now that you say that, I'm like, wow. You kind of write a bio, but you're like, when you hear somebody else say it, you're like, wow.
It's something else, right?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell the audience real quick? I'm sure I missed out on key points. What's sort of your story? How did you get here?
Well, so I've had what I call the perfect storm in life several times. And if you're not listening to the signals that are coming in, then you're basically not going to get the read you're supposed to get on your own life. My first perfect storm was when I woke up one day and didn't have direction, and I saw Star Wars, and I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. And I wasn't even going to college, so I applied to college. Weirdly, I got into NYU somehow. I don't know. And I'm not going to give you that whole story, but, I came out to California and worked in the industry for a very long time. And then the second storm hit in 2008 with that crash, which was awesome. And we practically lost everything, including our house in that. And then the third storm was COVID. And we still hadn't invested in real estate, although, we should have seen the signs coming. But I kept thinking, the movie industry and the television industry, it gave me a great career and a great life. Some of the stuff you see back here is up here because I've worked in special effects. I worked on Batman, the animated series. I worked on The Abyss. I worked on Flight of Navigator. Just, they're old, but they're still relevant, right? I worked on Terminator 2. But 2008 was another pivot when COVID hit and we couldn't work. And so, everything was shut down. My wife's business shut down. She owns a beauty place where women actually go and they rent out space. So we were paying rent on that. And so we just sat down and went, how the hell are we ever going to retire if this continues? And we just did what everybody else did. We did the whole, rich dad, poor dad thing, bigger pocket thing. And all we were getting we were getting crumbs. We weren't getting the actual, like, how the hell do you really do this? And so we've interviewed several mentors and finally found our mentors, Jen and Stacy Conkey, who had, I don't know if you know them or not, but they have something called Warriors of Wealth. And, it's really my wife that made that decision about who we were going to go with, because she felt like some of these are real boys clubs, which I was like, if you're going to do this, you have to be comfortable doing this. So she picked right. So always listen to your the moral to that story is always listen to your wife, because we went to work. Our first 9 months at this, we sucked. We honestly did. We sucked. We were not following directions because, I'm a technical director. I'm an associate producer. I've managed large group of people, and I'm like, I know this. Well, I didn't, and I had to get my ego out of the way. And finally listen to my mentors. And when I did that, that's when the light went off. And I went, oh, stop being an idiot and listen to the people that are mentoring you. 6 years later, I think we own 11 apartment buildings now and $20 million on assets under management with our partners. We didn't do that all alone. So I know I'm being long-winded, but that's kind of how we got here.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a fascinating story. And we were just chatting right before we went live that everyone has a different journey, right? Nobody has the perfect, one step followed by the other. And there's winds and turns in life, and you just have to listen to it.
Yeah.
And more importantly is that you have to get your buy-in from the partners around you. So I think when you mentioned about your wife, that's completely true. I think having a partner that supports you in your goals and that is bought in that in and of itself is a superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. She's smarter than I am when it comes to stuff like that. But she's also the person that takes care of all of our asset management and that end of it too. So she worked into that role. My role as a capital raiser, I was never going to be a capital raiser. I was going to be the acquisition guy. But
Mhm.
what comes of that is you find out, well, yeah, that's great, but without the capital, there is no deal. So what I found out was I got into my first deal and I needed $725,000, and I had no way of knowing how to. I didn't walk that path.
Mhm.
But innately, I guess I knew how to do that because I went to work at a very early age for my grandfather, who owned a bunch of stores in Paterson, New Jersey, and I learned sales from the old school sales guy and just kind of went back to that, you know,
Hmm.
kind of went back to the training that I got when I saw these old school sales guys that knew how to close. And I'm like, oh, I should go back and remember that.
Yeah.
So I really found out that it wasn't about, it wasn't about the property. It was about the story, like we talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Definitely. And I think that your background in telling stories on the screen definitely has something to do with you telling a story in
Yeah.
capital raising, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of what the book is about too. It talks about common threads and finding those when you're having the conversation, listening for those stories that you can relate to and listening for the pain points of people that are relatable to your story so that you take them on the journey with you, right? So you're kind of on this hero's journey we all talk about, but talking about it and using it is two different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm in conversations, the book, I know we're transitioning quickly, but the book all started from, I was at one of Hunter Thompson's Raise Masters events and everybody was talking about, I have this, I have that, I own this, I own that. And I was talking to this woman and I said, look, I just want to know who you are. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
about everything else that you own. Who are you as a person and what makes you tick? Why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
So that's really what happened.
Yeah, I think people forget that. I definitely see a lot of marketing and people out there. They're just showing like what you're investing in, not so much who you're investing in.
Right.
And I think as you and I know, as we're operating these assets, it's like it's the operator that's more important than the asset, right?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I have been the side of those capital calls you don't want to get.
Yeah,
So I understand the pain of that. And so
yeah,
the way we do all of our deals is we make sure that we have reserves and we have capital in that, put away for those reserves, right? Because we're building, I know this is really cliche, know, like, and trust, right?
Mhm.
But truer words have never been spoken.
Mhm.
And so to repeat what you keep doing, you have to deliver on the promise that those assets are going to do what, you're telling your investors they're going to do. So you
Yeah,
need a team, like a really good team behind you. And you were asking me about Brad and Ollie before we, so Brad Bunin and I have been in business a long time and we just trust each other and you go through the hell and come back. That's what my whole thing about being in business with people is that I like to be in business people that have failed or with
Mhm.
people that have failed and come back from the ashes rather than,
Mhm.
hey, look at how successful I am. Like, because I have failed and come back from the ashes a lot.
I think anybody that hasn't failed hasn't won, really.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
how do you win? I think a lot of people they just overemphasize that they're on top of the world and that kind of stuff. Whereas in reality, it's like nothing will go according to plan. You'll
No.
have to learn and you'll have to adapt.
Yeah.
And how you come back is more important than you falling in the first place.
Well, that's why, in the book, I write about the perfect storm because the perfect storm is it happens. And if you can't navigate out of find ways or creative ways of getting out of that, you're going to get stuck. And so for me and my wife and my team, it's always been about if something goes wrong with a property, we don't blame, we find solutions, right? And I'm
Hmm.
always about that. There's no problem, only solutions.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I've lived my entire life.
Hmm.
And I think the universe is listening. Well, hopefully, I think the universe is listening. So,
Yeah, I like that. I think it reminds me of Alex Hormozy, right? You probably heard of him. So like during COVID, where gyms, right, they literally shut down overnight.
yeah,
His his business actually only lost 10% of their top line instead of 100% or 50% like most people did. And one key thing that he drilled into his team's head is that if we cannot control it, we do not talk about it.
right.
So we're thinking of solutions, not problems. Because if we're faced with these problems, everyone else is faced with the same problems.
Yep.
So let's figure out solutions.
Yeah, and that's kind of how everything I approach is. And look, real estate's hard. Life is hard, right? Getting into a deal is hard. Dealing with sellers or everything about it is hard. And when we were looking for the right people, we didn't want to get we were talking to people who said, yeah, we'll make you rich in a year and blah 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 blah. We wanted somebody that said this is hard.
Mm,
Okay. I wanted somebody to tell me the truth because
yeah.
you can go on social media all day long and everybody's having success, but I will tell you that when a hurricane hits or a fire hits or a tree falls on your roof, that's the stuff people aren't talking about. Let's talk about the hard stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, for me in my business running mobile home parks, I couldn't even fathom natural disasters. Like how do you underwrite for that, right?
Right.
And then a couple of months ago, we had a tornado hit one of our mobile home parks. It ripped through some trees and like trailers and stuff. But like, how do you underwrite that? You
Yeah,
you don't. You
exactly.
just deal with it,
You just
right?
deal with it, and that's what you do. And I wish more people would actually talk about the hard stuff because I think it's more valuable. Like
Hmm.
when I teach
Definitely.
people, I teach capital raising on Monday nights for Jen and Stacy now on the Warriors of Wealth. And one of the
Hmm.
things I always tell them is that you all are posting on social media how great things are. I've done a test about the hurricane that ripped through our 14 unit in Tampa, and I had more people follow up with me or like me because there was heart in that story about just how much we lost and how we protected our residents and put them up in hotels and made sure they had food and shelter and they were, rather than, hey, I just bought a 22 unit and I'm going to make $20,000 a month. People don't give a crap.
Right. Yeah, we see so many of those. I think that's life in general. I think people have it backwards, right? I mean, people like to brag about their accomplishments and stuff, but it really doesn't tell you much. Like, I think if you want to know who somebody is, you should look at their journey, how they got there in the first place.
Absolutely.
People ask what are some defining moments of like success and stuff, but what were some defining moments of failure?
Well, um, the defining moment of failure for me when everything changed was when I got laid off of my job because I thought I was that good at it. And when I realized that even though I worked for a company for over 15 years, I didn't get fired because of who I was or my work ethic. They were moving to another state
Hmm.
and my job was not protected. And I'll just say it. I worked for Disney and they were moving my operations to Texas.
Hmm.
So the defining moment for me was, well, holy crap, my income just went away. What the hell are we going to do? And when you're with a company for a long time, you're always thinking, well, there's security there. There isn't. And that's why, again, the defining moment for me is when when I went into my 401k for the first time and I pressed the submit button for $75,000, my fingers were shaking because I'm like, what the hell am I doing
Yeah.
for this, property that we were getting into? I hit submit and I was like, did I just make the biggest mistake of my life? Because, I tied everything of my retirement to my 401k. And that was a defining moment when I realized my 401k is not going to pay 10.5% cash on cash return. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. A lot of people they take these things for granted. I think, especially with the job mentality, people just get used to it,
Yeah.
um, and they don't realize that there's uncertainty everywhere in life. I think that's just the nature of things, right? I think even to the point that like I don't know, like I can step out and get hit by a car, like that kind of stuff. Like people don't plan for that, but it's important to recognize that it could happen. So
Yeah.
what do people like you and I do? You know, we eventually found our way to real estate. We're like, we need to find a way to be resilient in case something happens where we lose our job, we can't work. Then like, how are we going to pay the bills,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then it was a big gotcha moment for me. The light bulb went off in my head. When I learned how to analyze properties properly, I was like, if we do this right, I can retire in 5 years, where I can't do that tied to a W-2. I mean, not at the level I was at. I mean, I'm sure there's people, presidents, vice presidents of these corporations I work for that, yeah, I mean, they have a sweet deal when they leave, but I didn't, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was the guy on the front lines. So that's really what it was for me, is like, the other part of that story is my mother got really sick and we had to put her into a memory care unit, and that was draining us. So we had to figure really quickly, we had to figure out how to get income quickly. And, we weathered the storm of the interest rates hiking 11 times because we foresaw, because of our mentorship and what we were trained, when you have good mentors, they're also being mentored by people who are even smarter than they are. And so our mentors are being mentored by Tony Robbins. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're going to Tony Robbins and coming back to us and basically told us there's a storm coming. Winter is coming. Prepare for it because interest rates are going to hike. So if you have really good mentors that have their finger on the pulse, that's what saved all of our deals, because we started underwriting things at a higher interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
That was a
That's
big part of
interesting.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess for you to sort of mitigate your risk and get through these things, you have to have good sources of information and make sure that their sources of information are good too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anybody who's got better sources of information than Tony Robbins. You know what I mean? So
Right.
if that man doesn't know a storm coming, we're all in trouble.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure. I mean, he's gotten a lot of context from different walks or from people from different walks in life, and I've been to his conferences and stuff. He talks about all his wild stories. It's just he's lived the life of 10 different people or something,
yeah,
right?
he has. He's lived the
Yeah,
life I'd like to live, and
yeah,
possibly will. Who knows? We'll see. You
for
know,
sure.
going forward.
I think it's never too late. Yeah. So
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 um,
okay. How did you so we're talking about failure and overcoming it, and I think getting that sort of harsh awakening is what sometimes that we need to get ourselves out of our head, right? Because I think we tell ourselves these stories and we get comfortable with these stories that we tell ourselves until our world gets shaken
oh yeah,
and like, hey, pay attention, like figure this out.
yeah. Well, again, there are things in that I think are put in your path on a for a reason, and if you don't listen to that reason, you're just going to stay stuck. Like, I'm not that kind of person that likes to stay stuck. I like finding solutions to problems. Even, I mean, look, back in 2008, I got my car repossessed. Okay, because we listened to people that we thought were smarter than us and weren't. So that was lesson one, like learning, right, and understanding that people are going to hate me for saying it. Banks lie.
Hmm.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
especially during that time, they lied to us. And so you walk out as a person. By the way, that car was a car that I dreamed of owning my entire life. And I walked out one morning and saw a tow truck, and the guy was putting my car on a tow truck. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, he handed me a form saying, your car's being repossessed. I'm like, holy crap, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so that they're turning points in your life. And then 2008, obviously, I mean, my wife's business, which she brings in, a good amount of money every year, just totally shut down. So that took our income away. and we were taking care of my mom for close to $6,000 or $7,000 a month. So like passive income is, making money for people, and passive income is the place to go, and putting your money in real estate is the place to be. And the other thing is that everybody needs to realize is that I heard Pace Morby talk at Raise Masters, and he made an incredibly, like, if you're not listening to the pulse of what's going on now every day. So he was at a Walmart, and we were at the Walmart at the same night at the same time, which is really funny. And we saw this automaton cleaning machine that when you stepped in front of it, it would get out of your way. So I tested it a couple of times, and every time I moved, it moved out of the way. I had no idea Pace was going to talk about this the next day. He's on stage talking about if you're not listening to what's going on. And then he tells a story about this automaton in Walmart replacing the person that's scrubbing the floors at Walmart.
Mm.
So that job's been eliminated.
Mm.
So one of the things that you really have to keep track of as far as when you wake up and you're listening to the pulse, like all these other things that happened to me, they had to happen for a reason, so that I'm listening.
Right.
So yeah, he told this amazing story about the reason why you're in real estate is because that'll never go away. But other jobs that depend on like the things that AI can do, you're done.
Yeah. I think the change is the only constant in life. And I mean, it's literally a law of physics, right? And we seem to forget about it. We take a lot of things for granted. I think the base of things, so like real estate will never go away because people always need housing, but how it's delivered, how that service is offered, that can change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, through having like realtors or like through Zillow or different things like that. So I think being an entrepreneur teaches us to listen because we're very in tune with what the marketplace wants, right? Because if you think about it, in the economy, it's really the marketplace of value because you're trading what I would buy something if I value that thing more than the dollar in my hand. So as an entrepreneur, you're always listening. Okay, like how can I make a transaction happen? Because that's how you make money. It's not like something's hitting your direct deposit, right?
Right.
So being able to figure that out and being resilient, it's the going to the gym part, that pain that you voluntarily take so that you could be more resilient, when times get tough.
No, I did that last night. I forced myself to go to the gym at 9:00.
Nice.
I did that last night. I didn't want to, but when I left there, I was like, yeah, I need to listen to myself for sure.
Yeah. I think, you hit on something very core, Andy, and just listening to yourself. I have learned that as well, just through my journey in entrepreneurship. You will generally know what the right move is. I don't think the answer comes from out there; it comes from within.
Yeah.
So I think just slowing down and sort of listening to what you think is right. That's how you find the way.
Yeah, and if it's okay if we transition to something that really is slowing down and listening is really when I woke up one morning, I realized that there was our education system for kids, financial literacy sucks.
Yes.
And there's not enough people out there. And once you put an idea out to the universe, it somehow blossoms by itself, right? And so I came up with the name Rise by 25 in a dream. It wasn't even like I had to think about it. It was like, what if I could show young adults 16 to 25 how to rise by the time they're 25 so that they're financially free? Because nobody did that for me. I had to do this all on my own. We're not taught this in college. We're not taught it in high school. Or if you have really good parents, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean financially literate parents is what I'm talking about, which I didn't have. They were in the entertainment business, so they weren't even dialed in. But if I could find a way to teach kids 16 to 25 financial literacy through doing this, then that became a movement, which it is now. And 4 of the kids that actually are in the movement wrote a book called Rise by 25, which is now an Amazon bestseller.
Nice.
So my thing is I'm leaving a legacy beyond what I could do by having these other young adults who saw the dream and the vision and want to carry that on. This 22-year-old, she's gonna kill me because I can't remember the college she just graduated from. Graduate with honors, took it upon herself to get the rest of the kids who I brought in to Rise by 25 and write a book called Rise by 25. It's an Amazon bestseller, and I was blown away by that.
So that's fascinating. How did you go from a dream to turning it into something and then making it into the movement that it is?
So it's been a long run. It's been a year. When I first came up with the idea, it's been a year. Um, I've been looking at models of and doing a lot of research and kind of understanding the psyche of Gen Z, because that's really what we're talking about, right? We're talking about Gen Z and relating to Gen Z or even whatever the other Gen is. So I had this seed of an idea, and I went to my mentor, Jen Conkey, and I said, "You have Warriors of Wealth. What if we extend Warriors of Wealth and kind of use what I've already learned within Warriors of Wealth and create something called Rise by 25? And when they're ready, then they graduate into Warriors of Wealth. Because Rise by 25 is just we're teaching kids financial literacy on duplexes 2 to 4 units, right? That's their start, so that they can understand how to analyze a property, how to do the whole thing, create a JV, vet property managers, vet contractors. That's all part of this, right? And she was like, Andy, I was thinking about doing it. I just don't have the time. So we teamed up on this. And then she's been coaching me because she's so much farther ahead of me with social media and marketing. So we built this out together, bottom line. Okay. So then I met a woman who's no, she's not part of our group yet. I mean, the group we belong to. And she loved what I was doing, and she said, "Hey, my daughter was doing private lending and hard money lending when she was 13. I think she'd be perfect for this." It was just snowballing from there, right? Because it was out in the universe. Um, and then ultimately, I met a guy whose his kids were going to be the face of this, because this old man is not going to relate to 16-year-olds, right? Even though I could be like the guy they're going to teach how to do social media, which was a funny part of what we're doing. And his kids were on board. I know we're probably running longer, but his kids were on board. Funny enough, there was a guy by name, do you know who Bill Allen is? Seven Figure Flipping. So Bill Allen has something called Seven Figure Flipping. Bill Allen was starting something for kids. They went to AMC, pitched a show called Flipping Kids. And these two kids that were supposed to be with me are now on that show on TV.
Wow, that's good.
And I'm like, well, I know this works, because if AMC is picking this up as a show to teach kids financial literacy through flipping houses, this works.
Hmm.
So we've been doing webinars every month to try to get more, well, not try, getting more people and their moms and dads involved with their kids. It's been a slow run, but people are signing up, and I have a 13-year-old that just turned 14 who's analyzing properties.
It's great.
Yeah.
You can never start too early, right? He'll be the Tiger Woods of multifamily investing.
He does Excel formulas in Excel at 14 years old. I don't know where you were when you were 14, but I know where I wasn't there when I was 14.
I think it's great, giving kids and the younger generation the guidance and the inspiration, because I truly think that is the missing piece to why a lot of people take longer than they would like to get to where they are. I was just catching up with a friend. He's 39, and he's like, "Man, I wish I knew this stuff when I was like 21. Like I would be in a much better position like 10 years ago." So I think just having the resources and the inspiration, that's super important.
Well, it's a movement, and we're calling them the early risers.
I love it. I love it.
So that's my mission now.
Nice. So transitioning to what you do in real estate, I know you mentioned you wrote the common thread method, and you raised a ton of capital. So would love to just learn more about that. But so tell us about the common thread method. Like what is that in a nutshell?
So basically, the thread is an acronym. I won't get into the whole thing, but it's an acronym, right? Trust, human relationship, rapport, emotional intelligence, um, authenticity, and then due diligence, right? So it's an acronym. Thread is an acronym. So those are some of the chapters in the book. The THREAD. I go into detail about those in the book. But again, it really came out of I was so tired of hearing the mechanics of raising capital. I wanted to know the mindset of raising capital because you're going to get through a lot of no's, and either you stay in the game with a really good mindset, or you're going to go like, well, this isn't for me, right? So I wanted to research what it took to be a capital raiser, as far as how do you talk to people when you're out in the street? Everybody says, "Oh, tell me your elevator pitch." The thing is, the elevator pitch doesn't always work, right? Because it's not about me, it's about you. And I want to find out what your pain point is. So I'm finding those threads in our conversation that gets me to the point of never being needy to ask for money because we have this rapport. So I understand, and it talks about not being afraid of asking how much a person has, because we've all been a lot of people I teach are afraid to talk about money. We're afraid to ask people how much they have, and because oh my God, the stigma around that garbage. But when it actually works, and you can have that honest conversation about, hey, I mean, you just told me, your mom's in a memory care, and you have no path forward. What if I could show you a path forward, right? With the $25,000 you're telling me you have left to invest, right? That's a different conversation than, hey, I got this deal, and you should really look at it. It's in Texas and blah. It's a different conversation, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I hear that pitch all too often.
all too often, and
Yeah.
I call it the unpitch. That's a chapter in the book is the unpitch.
Hmm.
I won't get into every chapter.
Yeah.
It also, Jen was amazingly enough, she wrote 6 chapters and the forward for the book.
Hmm.
And her whole thing, her superpower is mindset.
Hmm.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. So all this is unconventional knowledge, but I think it's important for people to know. Now, obviously, you didn't learn all of this in one day, but maybe let's go back to your first deal. I know we were talking about it. You needed 720,000. You probably didn't have this information. So how did you get through it? How did you raise for it? What were the challenges that you went through and you overcame?
So, obviously, the first challenge was getting the deal, which was in Chicago,
Hmm.
and understanding all of that. Um, but here's what I really want to drive home is,
Yeah.
um, I know I'm saying a lot because I really want to nail this. Okay, when I joined Warriors of Wealth, there was a network of people in there, okay, that were all doing deals and they were ahead of us. And I kept feeling like, what the hell am I doing wrong until this happened? But I was consistently engaged in the conversations. When you go to meetups and you go to other things, you have to be present. You can't be a wallflower. Okay. I used to be a very shy kid. Could you tell? Back in the day when I was 8 or 9 years old, I was a total book nerd. I didn't interact. There's like kids today on their phones. You know?
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting sidetracked. I promise I'm getting to the point. But I put myself out there, right? And I
Mm.
started to have conversations with people. And what I finally realized was they were in as much pain as I was, right? Looking for a deal that they couldn't put their money into because nothing was penning out. So when I was more comfortable being in a network, I knew those people, and that's really what the secret sauce was. I had spent 9 months getting to know these people, it wasn't like I just met them on the street and then asked them for money. It was I went to meetups and you know I got on Zoom calls, and there's a thing called Zoom at 8 with, I don't know if you know Julie Peterson or not, right? Julianne Peterson.
Mhm.
You know, so I got on those, and there's another guy here in California. His name's JJ. I don't know if you know JJ, but this is a guy that's used network on Facebook. So it was just about being present in those conversations. Uh, and when when I started, when I created the pitch deck, it wasn't about it. It was more about the actual story of the property than the property itself. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like I took a deep dive into why they were selling, what was the story behind the property. That to me made it a lot more interesting.
Mhm.
Mom and dad going through this, or we're helping them out of a bind, or that 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 was part of my pitch deck, is the story of the property itself.
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
So so you had to tell the story of the property and the deal, and you brought in people that you've gotten to know over the course of call it the past 9 months.
Yeah, it was just about building those relationships, because obviously cold calling is a hard thing to do, and I'm not a big fan. So
Yeah.
and when people build these CRMs and they got 500 people, well, that's great. But if they're cold, that's a tough
Mhm.
sell, right?
Right. Right.
So I just went to work. Kind of like, if you tell me I can't do something, I say, watch me.
Nice.
Yeah.
That that's a good characteristic to have. So when you're building these relationships with people, I mean, yes, like the CRM helps you stay organized, but I think you make it a note not to lose that personal connection between the actual person. So
Yeah.
how do you just maintain that sort of relationship at scale? Because you're talking to a lot of people. Sometimes the timing isn't right, or the opportunity isn't right for them to get involved. So how do you manage everything?
I stalk people on Facebook and LinkedIn. I literally do that. Every one of my investors who are on LinkedIn or Facebook, I will look at what they're doing on a daily basis, like if their kids are having a birthday or whatever, and reach out and just say, hey, I saw, your family, your member, whatever, is having a birthday. Just wanted to, reach out. Or, when people are posting about life changes or crap happening, like I had a really good friend of mine, unfortunately, he had some life circumstances happen, and he invested a lot of money with me. I called him and I'm like, I'm here for you, man, whatever you need, and that came from, again, those 9 months of building those relationships. But this is a person who had, I thought this guy has a great life. He's traveled all over, and, he's got money, but crap happens in people's lives. So I keep tuned into what my investors are doing, and obviously I have them in the CRM, and I have a VA that helps as well, which you need somebody to trust. But it's really about keeping your fingers on the pulse of what they're doing,
Mhm.
and obviously newsletters, you know.
Yeah,
Well,
I think Tony Robbins says you should reach out to celebrate or to console.
yeah, and that's exactly what I do.
I
Yeah,
like that. I like
because
that.
crap happens in people's lives. I mean, you could be going along on a really steady path, and like yesterday, the day before yesterday was my son-in-law's birthday, and yesterday he got hit by a truck. He's okay, but crap happens.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oof.
You know,
I'm glad he's okay, but absolutely,
yeah.
things like this happen. So it's when you're capital raising, right? There's definitely it's like a balance between how much do you automate versus how much do you not. Because I've definitely gotten messages from people, from their VAs, pretending to be them, and I'm like, I know it in an instant, right? So how do you balance automating versus not, outsourcing versus in-housing?
Well, my VA they don't do anything without me giving them, I give them the copy All they're doing is sending stuff out, right?
Mhm.
So I will give them the copy. I will tell them this needs to go out to this person, this needs to go out to this. So they have a list from me of what I need. I never depend on anybody, especially a lot of VAs don't come from this country, which it's not a bad thing. It's just they don't understand our culture. And training them is sometimes very difficult, right? So when you find a good one that understands the culture, you stay with them,
Mm.
you know. And I've had one with me for about 3 years, and she's just really good at what she does now. But at first she wasn't, and I had to have her understand what I needed. But I don't let them write emails or copy or social media because their heart's not my heart.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people outsource their voice, which I think is a mistake.
Outsourcing sometimes doesn't. This whole AI thing with outsourcing, I know instantaneously if I'm talking to a real person or not, and that's not part of my business. So,
Right.
yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Going back to your first deal, I think all that makes sense. You know, you're building that relationship and you're sort of reaching out and keeping in touch with people. But then how did you go from there to now over 6 million? I mean, that's a long way, but you've definitely taken a lot from what you've learned and also learned new things, right?
Well, most of it is I've brought in other people with me that I've kind of trained as well. So I haven't done all these deals on my own as far as raising capital. I built a team of people that raise capital with me. And I've taught them. And they have a network of people. So our whole business is that I spent over 30 years in the TV and film industry, and most people there want to see you fail. In the industry that we're in, I find it incredibly interesting that people want to see you succeed because if you succeed, they succeed. So it's
Yeah.
a win-win situation.
Yeah.
So, what I did was I identified people within my network that I was watching for a long time because literally I raised $2.9 million and gained 30 pounds out of stress and thought, I can't keep doing this on my own. I need to build a team of people that I could teach to do this. Because, it's stressful. Chasing money is stressful. That's why we're doing what we're doing with the fund now, right? But I watched people from the sidelines and vetted them to see if they had the same ethic I did. And so I brought two people in to help.
That's great. That's
But
great.
but the 6 million was on me alone. Now we're above that now,
Mhm.
right?
It's great. Yeah, I think having good people by you is so important. And to sort of tie what we were just talking about together, I think with the topic of VAs too, a lot of people seem to think that VAs are in a different bucket of people,
Yeah.
and they seem to forget that they're actually people, right?
Yeah.
So I think I am actually guilty of that. Like many years ago when I first used VAs back then, I was like, okay, they're like, they don't know what they're doing, that kind of stuff. But now, I see them as people, like what you said. Spend your time, invest in them, like train them, teach them how you think, and people learn. People
Yeah.
have a brain, and you
Yeah.
can absolutely replicate things.
Sorry, cut you off again, but I have gone through VAs as well that don't perform. So there's
Yeah,
that
of
because
course,
they just weren't getting it, and no fault of theirs. It was just again, sometimes it's a cultural thing, right?
for sure.
Because we here in America think in a whole different plane than a lot of other countries, especially when it comes to social media, and we have a different playing field here. No,
Definitely.
so
Yeah, I was talking to someone else who moved here from the Middle East when he was in his late 20s, and he was telling me how different it was to move from there to here.
yeah,
Um, Funny thing, so he's quite tall, and he said that in his country people made fun of tall men. So people there like tall women and short men, whereas in the U.S. it's the other way around. So all his life he was being made fun of for being tall, but then here he's getting extra attention from people. They're like, "Oh, do you play basketball? Like, what's going on here?" So
perfect example, right? Of different cultures. It's a perfect example.
yeah,
So
yeah,
getting into
yeah,
that, yeah,
yeah, for sure. So okay, I think all that is is a gold mine, I think, of what you've been so far of your journey. I mean, it's been winding like here and there and stuff. Would you say there's been sort of one common thread, not to use your book's name, but yeah, common thread that led to your success, that in your journey that kept you going, that you can share?
I can show you something, not tell you something. This is, if you take anything else away,
I like that. Do or do not. There is no try.
this has been
Wise words from Yoda.
it's what I taught my kids. It's the motto I live by. And when I hear the words try come out of my mouth, I basically stop myself, because there's no try. You have to do, right? Because try is an excuse.
Yeah. Try gives you buffer from the actual outcome versus doing.
So that to me is always, look, I've had a lot of failures in my life. And I'll be the first person to tell you that. Okay? It wasn't for lack of trying. Sometimes it was for lack of doing. Doing the homework, doing the research. But I don't do that anymore. Now I do.
Interesting. So let's say, looking back in your life, what's one piece of advice that, if you can speak to your 30-year-old self, you would give?
The one piece of advice is listen to people, get out of your own way, because at 30 years old, you're way too damn cocky and you don't know everything. So listen to the people that have come before you, even though you think they're old and they don't know anything. That's what I would tell my 30-year-old self. Because my 30-year-old self was a cocky SOB.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
I think young people learn that wisdom has value over time. And these people, fresh college graduates, and you see how social media is, right? Like, people are flexing on social media or whatever, but then they're like, okay, well, this guy's actually lived life. He's been around the sun about 20 more times than I have, so he probably knows a little bit more.
I think, Gen Z is actually getting it, which is really interesting. Honestly, I think some people give them a bad rap, but I think the smart ones are really getting it.
Right.
And they're making, like, the ones that are in Rise by 25 are Gen Zs. I have a 18-year-old that owns a 154 unit RV park in California. Like, what?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Huh. I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay, a couple more questions. Okay, where do you want to be in 10 years' time?
I want Rise by 25 to be, in 10 years, I want it to be a movement. I want to be in an office with knowing that I have made a change in young people's lives. Okay. Yeah, all the travel and all that crap will come, blah, blah, blah. I don't know where it comes from, but I've always said I will not go gently into the night.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, age is a mindset. I think people choose to fade. It doesn't really happen to them, right? There's older people that are really on it versus ones that are not.
So that's really it for me. I want to see younger people succeed and then not come out of college and go, now what the hell do I do? Not that college is a bad thing, but it doesn't give you the tools to, especially, if you're not hooking into AI right now in college, you need a wake up call.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. So how can people interact with you? How can people help on your journey, connect with you, and all that?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'll send you that. Obviously, Common Threads has a web page and a Facebook page. Rise by 25 has a web page and a Facebook page. So I can get you all of that. I don't know if you want me to, if you're going to
I'll drop it in the video. Yep.
Yeah, I'll get you all of that. But it's really about me helping other people, because if I help you, that's a win. So people have helped me in places where I never, like, these two women have changed. Like, my wife and I, we had no path to retire. So in 3 years, I'll be like, let's cash out and do the things we want to do and make a difference in people's lives. That's really what this is about.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, final question. So, I'm a big proponent of taking action and not just consuming content passively. So, if you were to speak to the listener directly, what's something that you would tell them to do? Maybe takes up to 2 minutes, 3 minutes that will move their needle forward today.
I would say this: mentorship's expensive, and so is college. I got more out of, although I lived for 27 or 30 years in the industry, which I got from college. I will give it that, and it gave me my lifestyle, but it didn't give me a path to retirement. Okay. What I would say was mentorship, even though it's expensive, if you do your research and you find the right people that care about you and not just want to take your damn money, that'll set your path on the right path, right? Financially, in the world that we live in, or any world. If you want to get into mindset stuff, right, and coach mindsets, then find somebody that's doing that and successful at it, and pay for their mentorship. Right? I've spent over $100,000 in mentorship, but I have $20 million in assets under management. You do the math. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's very true. A lot of people are afraid to spend money because we're used to, you know, uh, assuming the worst from people. But as long as you connect with the right people, you vet them out, you do your own due diligence, then you're able to trust them and that there are people that indeed want the best for you,
Yeah,
but they don't work for free because they have things going on in their lives too.
exactly. They're not going to work for free. Don't expect them to. Like Rise by 25 is not free, but it's not expensive because we understand the demographic we're going after. But it's at a price point where, and if you do the work, you could be in your first deal within 6 months as a 16-year-old.
That's powerful. Well, Andy, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Leo. I appreciate it. Yeah.